When the first summit party came back, Robert Schauer told me that whenever he took his mask sometimes down, sometimes, you know, his oxygen mask, and he was dizzy, you know. He didn't know what to say, he didn't know what to think, and this made me thinking, and I was fighting against it. And then I got a book about, it's called Doctor on Everest, and then I read what Odell again said. And then I think, well, it must be possible, you know, these 200 meter, we climbed Hidden Peak, we didn't feel bad, and this must be possible. So, but inside, I was always fighting. There were two powers sort of really, really pushing each other, you know. And I was almost ready and willing to use oxygen. Not to lose my brain, to be normal, to just go up and have a nice time, sit maybe 1 hour there and take some nice pictures. And then I tried to find a second partner. And I told Reinhold this, and I didn't find a partner, and then I was so mad because there were a big discussion, and they said I should have to go back on the end of the line and then try. And then I said, well, that's finished. You know, I was very, very angry, and I was all for going. And I had a big discussion with Reinhold, and then we said, okay, let's give it a try.
And he could not find a partner in 1 hour, and so I now is the possibility to take him back in my party. And I have only to tell him, Peter, you have done this and this and this and this. If I can do it, also you can do it, I'm sure. And I told him also, you see, in the base camp nobody was willing to go with you. Now show them that you can do Everest without oxygen.
Messner once summed up his friend, saying, "He's like a rocket, more impressive when you're filmed." Messner and Habeler pulled ahead. They could take 15 or 20 steps before running out of air and had to rest. Progress seemed grindingly slow and exhausting. As they disappeared from sight towards Camp 4, Messner, although completely spent, started using his cine camera. He had reached the South Col in a record 4 hours and recovered enough to film Peter Habeler's arrival. Of Eric Jones, there was no sign. Eric was well experienced, very fit, and had adapted well to oxygen starvation. But he was unable to climb at the relentless speed that Messner and Habeler had pushed themselves up the mountain. It wasn't until some hours later that he was to reach this point. Habeler was delighted with his own performance and was as confident of success as Reinhold Messner.
If on the way down, really, it's so bad that I have to take oxygen, I will do it. And for me, it's quite a valid ascent. But I am quite 100% sure if we can reach the top of Everest without oxygen, and if we can come down up to the last bivouac, up to the last camp, we don't use oxygen anymore, because I know it from other expeditions, from other experience, that on the way down, it is so much more easier to come down, to feel again well, that on the way up, that just if you reach the Western Cumb, there will be not more problems.
Reinhold got up the Hiller step first and filmed as I came up, and I think I put the ISX in as hard as I could, you know, to hold on, because it's maybe the most exposed place on Earth, down to Tibet, and on the left-hand side down to Nepal. And I got up that part. Reinhold didn't belay me, he was just filming. The slack, you know, was down. And again, it was in my way. I put it somewhere, the rope, and then I got up to him, and he did continue. I went towards the top, and all of a sudden, without warning, I felt a tightening of my right hand. My fingers were sort of going in, you know, together inside of my down glove, and I couldn't move them anymore. And at that moment, I was thinking the Sherpa who was paralyzed, half paralyzed in Camp 2, and I thought, my God, if this is going to happen to me, I'm going to die. I can't go back home. I can't go back to my family, and it's all going to be finished. You see. So then I sort of tried to massage a little bit. Reinhold didn't notice. He was going on further, and when I did massage, it was better again. Within short time he reached the summit, and he was sitting there beside the Chinese pole, and I just remember seeing him, and in the last moment I thought, well, we are going to make it, and I went up towards him, and all I remember, I started crying. I cried like a little child, you know, and I fell over him. He had to put his camera away, and I didn't care about the camera. I didn't care about anything else. I was just happy we were there. You know. I wasn't proud or whatever, and I wasn't even aware. And I don't think he was aware that we were sitting on top of Everest, which we had done without any oxygen. You know, we were just on a mountain somewhere in the world.
Characteristically, they'd hardly spoken between the South Col and the summit. At one point, as they gasped for air, Habeler had drawn an arrow in the snow pointing down. Messner immediately drew one pointing up. The message was clear, and that was the way they went. From the highest point on Earth, there's only one way, down, and this could easily be the most dangerous part.
And I sat in the snow, and all I realized was that the snow was breaking, that I was in the middle of an avalanche. I was going down. I lost control. I lost my ice axe, you know. I was covering my mouth and waiting for the still stand. And I was trying to make a hole so I could breathe. And then I realized I was free. I was sitting, and I couldn't see anything because my eyes were full of snow. And I had lost my ice axe. I had lost one crampon. I didn't think I was going to die, but there was nothing on my mind. It was blank.
An hour after Peter Habeler arrived on the South Col, Reinhold slid into view. They had reached the summit in less than 8 hours, without oxygen and with only a brief stop to make a cup of tea at the Austrian expedition's Camp 5. A few minutes had been enough to take some pictures and leave a token on the top. Then Peter's wild, uncontrolled descent in 1 hour. It was an unbelievable performance. Reinhold plodded into camp. He had lifted his goggles too many times and had become snowblind. Eric Jones, filming, had waited in support on the South Col. Already his fingers and toes were frostbitten, eliminating any chance of an attempt on the summit. Messner had come to a strange agreement with Habeler. If one of the pair became incapacitated, the other must use what remained of his strength to save himself and abandon his partner to his fate. That night, Messner, the driving force behind the ascent, writhed in agony from his burning eyes and pleaded with Habeler not to leave him. And he didn't. 3 days later, they were enjoying a hero's welcome at base camp.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
High-altitude climbing would never be the same again. They had not gone out crazy with ambition and returned crazy in the head, as some experts had forecast. They had proved conclusively that there was no place on Earth too high to be reached by strong, intelligent men who had the ability to withstand pain and were prepared to risk everything.
Grüß dich.
This is Radio Nepal. The news read by Rita Rajguru. Reinhold Messner and Peter Habeler of the Austrian Sagarmatha expedition scaled Mount Sagarmatha yesterday without using oxygen. The two started climbing from their fourth camp on the South Col at 6 in the morning yesterday and reached the summit around noon. They returned to the fourth camp by 2:30 in the afternoon.